You're fired. Hand over the keys and leave before security drags you out." The CEO's voice cut across the marble lobby as employees stopped to watch the quiet janitor grip his worn brass key ring. Why didn't the old man defend himself? Why did the building manager suddenly turn pale when he saw one particular key? And why, minutes after the janitor was escorted into the rain, did every elevator in the tower freeze between floors? The man they had mocked had spent 20 years cleaning up other people's messes. But this time, the mess reached the executive suite, and the truth hidden in the building's deed was about to change every life inside it. Stay until the final door opens. "Give me the keys, Mr. Ward." Grant Holloway held out his hand beneath the lobby chandelier. Rain rattled against the glass doors. Employees froze between the elevators and reception. Melissa Crane watched beside the security gates, her hand on his dismissal folder. Elijah lowered his eyes to the ring in his palm. 12 steel keys clicked together. One brass key lay apart, dark with age. "All company property," Grant said. "Now." Elijah slid the steel ring across the marble counter. The sound carried. Grant pointed. "That one too." "No." A few heads lifted. Elijah had spoken quietly, yet the word stopped the room. Melissa stepped closer. "You don't decide what belongs to you. This one was never issued by your company." Grant gave a short laugh. "Marcus." Marcus Bell approached from the security desk. His navy jacket was buttoned wrong at the middle. "Eli," Marcus murmured, "please don't make this harder." Elijah looked past him toward Thomas Reed. The building manager stood near the elevators. When Thomas saw the brass edge between Elijah's fingers, his mouth opened. "Grant," Thomas said, "you need to wait." "For what?" "That key?" Melissa cut him off. "Tom, this is an employment matter. It's a building matter." The elevator bell chimed once. No doors opened. Grant's smile thinned. "Escort him out." Marcus touched Elijah's elbow. His hand was warm through the damp sleeve. No one moved. A woman lowered her phone. Behind the desk, a printer fed blank pages with a dry hiss. Elijah took one step, then stopped. "My locker." "Your belongings will be mailed," Melissa replied. "There's a photograph." "Then it will be mailed." His thumb pressed against the worn teeth of the key. It opened a room no executive had seen. Ruth had tied red thread around it the day the first concrete was poured. The thread was gone, but a faint groove remained. Marcus guided him toward the doors. Behind them, Thomas pressed the elevator button twice. The light stayed dark. "Control room," he called. "Check system status." The lobby lights dipped. Every elevator indicator stopped. 12, 19, 31, 38. Numbers suspended in red above sealed doors. Grant turned. "What happened?" The guard bent over his monitor. "The system switched modes." "What mode?" The screen flashed amber across his face. "Protective lock." "Override it." "I'm trying." Elijah reached the entrance. Cold air touched his wet collar. Marcus's fingers tightened, then loosened. Thomas crossed the lobby and nearly slipped on a drop of rain from Elijah's coat. It shone on the white marble between Elijah's scuffed shoes and Grant's polished ones. "Mr. Ward," Thomas said. Grant snapped, "He doesn't work here anymore." Thomas looked at him. "That may not be the part you should be worried about." A second alert sounded, low as a bell beneath the floor. On every screen, the company logo vanished. White letters appeared against black. "Founders Safety Protocol active." Grant read twice. Who authorized that? Thomas's eyes dropped to the brass key in Elijah's hand. Elijah said nothing. Marcus opened the door. Rain blew across the threshold, and Elijah stepped into it without looking back. After the glass closed, a final line appeared. Authorized founder access required. At 4:30 a.m., 12 hours before the lobby doors closed behind him, Elijah Ward unlocked the service entrance and stepped into the sleeping tower. The basement smelled of lemon cleaner and the mineral heat of old pipes. He hung his damp coat and placed a paper cup beside the security monitor. "2 sugars," he said. Marcus Bell looked up from a crossword. "You keep doing this. I'll think you like me." "I like quiet people." Marcus grinned. "Wrong building." Elijah moved on before the first elevator cycle. In the boiler room, a gauge clicked softly. He rested 2 fingers against a pipe, felt its vibration, and wrote 442 beside the pressure reading in a black notebook. On level 6, a brass handrail shifted under his palm. Blue emergency light washed the carpet. He set down his cart, opened a dented toolbox, and tightened the hidden bracket. You know maintenance gets paid for that. Lena Ortiz stood behind him with a trash bag over one shoulder. 26 and quick-eyed, she wore a slipping green ribbon. "Maintenance is upstairs," Elijah said, "so call them." "Someone may use the stairs first." She crouched beside him. "You don't put this on your timesheet." He tested the rail. "Now nobody falls." "How do you know where every screw is?" St. Louis glimmered beneath November clouds. "I was here when some went in." She waited. He pushed the cart onward. At 5:18, they rode the freight elevator to the 23rd floor. Its motor groaned. Elijah tilted his head. "That sound bad?" Lena asked. "Not yet. Tell Thomas before noon." The doors opened to cold air and the waxy smell of polished stone. Elijah bent for a child's red mitten near reception. A photograph slipped from his shirt pocket. Lena caught it. A younger Elijah stood beside a woman in a yellow hard hat before the tower's exposed beams. "Your wife?" "Ruth." "She worked here?" He took the picture by its white border. "She worked everywhere." On the back, Ruth had written in blue ink, "Keep the doors open for the people no one sees." Elijah returned it to his pocket. At 6:03, Thomas Reed found them at the loading dock, carrying 3 folders. "Eli, did you fix the west stair rail?" "It was loose." "I had a work order." "You still have one. Mark it complete." Lena covered a smile with her glove. Thomas lowered his voice. "Grant Holloway starts today. Melissa says he wants every contractor reviewed." Elijah turned his mug handle toward Thomas before offering it. Thomas always held cups with his left hand. "Reviewed for what?" "Cost? Appearance? Efficiency?" Thomas glanced at Elijah's faded uniform. "You know how that sounds." A truck beeped outside. "Anything else?" Elijah asked. "They want the old technical rooms sealed, including founder control." Elijah's fingers stopped against the photograph in his pocket. "Who approved that?" "Melissa. Meeting at 7. Dawn thinned the dark over the river. Elijah took Thomas's unsigned notice and folded it twice. "Tell her not to seal anything until I inspect it." "She won't like a janitor giving instructions." Elijah slid the notice into his notebook. "Then don't tell her who gave them." Above them, every light in the executive suite came on at once. At 6:57 a.m., Grant Holloway stood before the 40th floor glass wall. "By Friday," he said, tapping the screen. "This building stops operating like a museum." Melissa Crane aligned 3 silver pens. 22 contractor positions can be replaced by temporary staff. Nolan Pierce frowned. "They won't know the systems. They'll follow instructions." Priya Shah, the 34-year-old counsel, turned a page. "And if the lease requires certified personnel?" Grant smiled. Then we certify them. No one laughed. Red columns shrank beneath labor optimization. Cleaning, security, and maintenance had become percentages. Cold air moved across the table as Grant spoke about image. At 7:16, Thomas entered with Elijah's folded notice. "What is that?" Melissa asked. "A request to delay sealing the old technical rooms. I approved the closures. There are controls behind those walls that aren't on current plans." Grant turned. "Then update the plans. Some systems predate this management company." Melissa held out her hand. "Give me the notice." Thomas hesitated. A chime sounded outside. Elijah stepped from the executive elevator carrying a sealed maintenance folder. His cuff was damp with soap. Grant stared at him. "Is this floor part of your route?" "No." "Then why are you here?" "For Mr. Reed." "Use the service elevator next time," Melissa said. "The freight car is carrying deliveries." "That is not our concern." Elijah offered the folder to Thomas. "The west rail is secure. The 23rd floor motor needs inspection before noon." Grant entered the corridor. "You seem confused about your role." "I clean what needs cleaning." "And wander into executive meetings?" "I was asked to bring this." Thomas reached for the folder, but Melissa took it first. She read Founders, Access, and Safety, then turned the label against her skirt. "What does that mean?" Priya asked. "Outdated terminology," Melissa said. Elijah watched the folder. "It means certain doors open during a system failure." Grant pressed the elevator button. "Explain it to maintenance." "He just did," Thomas said. The steel doors opened. Grant stepped inside and blocked the sensor. "Not this car," he told Elijah. A junior assistant lowered her coffee. Priya stopped writing. "There's room," Thomas said. "There are standards," Grant replied. "Executives use executive elevators. Contractors use freight." "The freight motor is failing," Elijah said. "Then take the stairs." Thomas's jaw tightened. "He's 67. Elijah touched his sleeve once. "It's all right." Grant's reflection hovered in the steel. Tie perfect. As the doors closed, Priya called, "Mr. Ward, who authorized that folder?" Elijah met her eyes through the narrowing gap. "Someone who expected it to be read." The doors sealed between his face and Grant's reflection. Melissa tucked the folder beneath her papers. "We continue." Elijah waited until the indicator climbed past 40, then turned towards the stairwell. The rail was cold. Inside, Grant advanced to his final slide. Old systems, old contracts, old habits. "By the investor meeting," he said, "all three are gone." Beneath Melissa's folder, the notice left a red line across the next page. At 9:08 a.m., the basement pressure gauge trembled against the red mark. Elijah leaned close enough to hear the faint metallic tick inside the glass. Once, twice, then a sharp click. Lena stopped beside him with a spray bottle. "That sounds worse than the elevator." "It is." Cold air slipped beneath the service door. Pipes shuddered overhead. Elijah wiped the gauge and checked yesterday's readings. "Can it burst?" Lena asked. "Not if they stop using the upper floors for 2 hours. The investor meeting starts at 10. That's why we tell them now." At 9:17, Thomas met them by the service desk. Elijah placed a report beneath the lamp and drew a red line under Fire Suppression Loop B. "Pressure surge," Thomas read. "Possible sensor bypass." "Confirmed bypass," Elijah corrected. Thomas glanced toward the elevators. "Melissa will say we're overreacting. Ask her to stand beside the gauge." Lena held the paper while Elijah signed. Beside his name, he printed, "Founders Protocol 4C." "What's that?" she asked. "An old rule." "Whose?" One written after a warning was ignored. The elevator opened. Melissa stepped out, heels striking concrete, a tablet under one arm. "Why is everyone down here?" Thomas raised the report. "We need a temporary shutdown from 30 through 40. "No, you haven't read it." "I know the schedule." Elijah turned the page toward her. "Read the pressure." She glanced at the red line, then at his uniform. "You are not an engineer." "No longer." Thomas said, "He's right about the system. He is a janitor speaking outside his scope." "The system doesn't care about scope," Elijah replied. Melissa took the report. "Investors arrive in 40 minutes. I will not clear 10 floors because an old dial moved. It moved because the bypass valve is closed." "Who closed it?" Thomas answered. "The closure order came from operations." Melissa folded the report once. "Operations will review it after the presentation." "If the pressure rises again," Elijah said, "the building will isolate the elevators and fire doors." "That sounds like a threat." "It is a sequence." Her thumb pressed into the fold. "Clean the conference level. Leave systems to management." She turned for the elevator. Thomas followed. "At least log the warning." After the presentation. The doors closed. Lena watched the indicator climb. "She's going to hide it." Thomas rubbed his forehead. "I'll send a digital copy." "The maintenance server is under her access," Elijah said. Lena pulled out her phone. "Then don't use the server." She flattened the creased report. Elijah's signature, the red line, and Founder's Protocol 4C remained clear. She took one photograph, then a closer one. "Delete those," Thomas whispered. "No." "She can fire you." Lena lowered the phone. "She can fire me with proof or without it." A low knock rolled through the pipe. The needle jumped, paused, and settled one mark higher. Elijah closed his notebook. "Send the photo outside this building." "To who?" Before he answered, the speaker chimed, "Custodial staff to the conference level immediately." Lena looked at the red line glowing on her screen. Then the gauge clicked again. At 9:41 a.m., water struck the conference room carpet in slow, heavy drops. Elijah looked up. A brown stain widened above the presentation table. "Kill the power to this section," he told Lena. "The investors are already downstairs. Power first." She ran to the breaker cabinet. Elijah moved the projector cart, pulled a plastic sheet from his trolley, and shoved a bucket beneath the leak. Wet plaster and burnt dust filled the room. Daniel Kim entered carrying name cards. 29 and narrow-shouldered, he stopped at the doorway. "What happened?" "Pressure pushed water into the ceiling line," Elijah said. "Don't touch the cables." Daniel looked at the dark projector. "Grant goes on in 15 minutes. Then he'll speak without slides." Lena flipped the breaker. The electrical hum died. A ceiling tile sagged. "Back up!" They moved just before the soaked panel dropped into the bucket with a flat splash. Water spread across the carpet in a silver fan. Grant arrived with Melissa and 3 investors. He stared at Elijah beside the exposed wiring. "What is this?" "A contained leak." "It looks like a disaster." Melissa stepped around the wet patch. "Why is the power off?" "Water reached the cable channel." Grant's jaw tightened. "Turn it back on." "No." Grant laughed once. "Excuse me?" "Not until maintenance confirms it's dry." Thomas examined the ceiling. He made the right call. Grant pointed at the stained carpet. "The right call would have been preventing this." Elijah wrung out a towel. Water ran from his cuff and tapped onto the floor beside Grant's polished shoes. "I warned operations," he said. Melissa answered too quickly. "You mentioned a minor fluctuation." Lena touched the photographed report in her pocket. "This is what happens when people stay in positions long after the building has moved past them," Grant said. A few people laughed. Elijah kept wiping around their shoes. Daniel noticed Elijah's red tag over the wall socket. "Circuit isolated at 9:43, he read. "You tagged it before the tile fell." "Yes." "So if the power had stayed on—" "Daniel," Melissa cut in, "take the cards downstairs." Grant stepped closer. "Can this room be used?" "Not safely." "You have 10 minutes. Use another room. This is the executive suite." "Water doesn't know that." Grant's smile disappeared. "Finish cleaning and leave the floor." Elijah rose. His knees cracked. Another drop struck the carpet. Thomas said, "We should move the meeting." Melissa turned on him. "You should control your staff." "He isn't my staff." Grant looked at Elijah. "Whose staff are you?" Elijah held his gaze. "Today, apparently, no one's." Daniel saw a folded report protruding from Melissa's folder. When she noticed his eyes, she pushed it deeper inside. "Get temporary cleaners in here before lunch," Grant told Melissa. "People who understand presentation." Elijah lifted the bucket and followed Lena. At the door, Daniel caught his sleeve. "You shut off the exact circuit," he whispered. "How did you know?" Elijah glanced at the dark ceiling. "I helped route it." Before Daniel could ask more, a low vibration moved through the wall. On the corridor display, elevator 23 flashed once, then went blank. At 10:06 a.m., Thomas Reed's office door shut with a soft click. Melissa Crane remained standing. "Rescind the shutdown request." Thomas set his cracked cap on the desk. "The request came from a pressure surge. You signed it, because it was correct." Outside, carts rattled toward the conference floor. Elijah waited near the filing cabinet, hands folded behind him. Lena stood by the door with her phone hidden in her apron. Melissa tapped the report against her tablet. "Grant needs the building stable for 90 minutes. "It isn't stable now," Thomas said. "Then make it look stable." Thomas rubbed his thumb along the cap's plastic visor. The office smelled of dust and overheated wiring. "Elijah asked for 2 hours," he said. "Give him one." Melissa faced Elijah. "You don't ask for anything here. You clean." "The pressure loop needs to be opened and tested." "By certified technicians. They're 20 minutes away. Then they inspect it after the presentation." Elijah glanced at the clock. "After may be too late." Melissa's mouth tightened. "Another sequence?" "Yes." Thomas stepped between them. "He has access to the old controls. Let him check the line. Those rooms are being sealed." "Not yet." "They are now." She turned her tablet toward him. A termination draft filled the screen. "Your contract ends in 6 weeks," she said. "Your pension review begins Friday. An insubordination finding could complicate it." Thomas tried to unfasten his top button. His fingers slipped twice. Lena moved closer. "You can't threaten him for reporting a safety issue." Melissa read her badge. "And you are?" "Someone who heard it." "Elijah," Thomas said quietly. He meant stop her. Elijah understood. "Lena, check the west corridor." She did not move. "Now." Her jaw tightened, but she left. The door clicked behind her. Melissa laid the tablet beside the report. "Choose which paper leaves this room." Thomas gripped his cap. A thin crack split across the visor. Elijah heard it. "I've worked in this tower 23 years, he said. "Then you know every contractor is replaceable." Elijah turned the cap so the fracture faced down and slid it back toward Thomas. "Sign nothing," he said. Melissa gave a dry laugh. "You're advising him now?" "I'm asking him not to make a frightened decision." Thomas looked at Elijah. "What do we do?" "Open the valve, test the line, delay the meeting. And if they fire us both? Then they fire us after the building is safe." The wall speaker crackled. "Executive services to lobby. Investors arriving." Melissa gathered the papers. Request denied. At the door, Thomas said, "Grant should hear this from us." "He already has." She left. Seconds later, Marcus Bell appeared at the far elevator. He looked toward Elijah, then away. Thomas whispered, "Why is security coming?" Elijah closed his notebook. "Because they've decided the warning is the problem." Marcus approached with 2 guards as the indicator above him froze at 22. "Elijah," Marcus called down the corridor, "Grant wants you removed after the presentation." Thomas's broken cap sat between them on the desk. Then the lights dimmed for exactly 3 seconds. At 4:52 p.m., Grant Holloway stepped onto the marble landing and raised one hand. "Everyone stay where you are." The lobby slowed. Rain blurred the city beyond the glass doors. Elijah stood beside his cart with a folded cloth in one hand. Melissa approached with a cream folder. Marcus followed. Grant opened it. "Elijah Ward, your contract is terminated effective immediately." A phone appeared above someone's shoulder. Elijah set the cloth down. "On what grounds?" "Disruption of operations, unauthorized access, refusal to follow instructions." Thomas pushed through the crowd. "Those instructions ignored a safety report." Melissa did not turn. "This is not your meeting." "It became mine when you threatened my pension." Several employees looked at her. Grant's voice sharpened. "Mr. Ward created panic before an investor presentation and withheld company keys." "I reported a closed valve," Elijah said. "You are a janitor." Elijah removed his badge. The clip caught in his shirt seam. He worked it loose and placed it on the counter. "I'd like to collect my things." "They'll be sent," Melissa said. "There's a photograph in my locker." "Personal property will be mailed." Elijah's hand rose to his chest. For 20 years, Ruth's picture had rested there whenever the building made a sound no one else noticed. Now the pocket was empty. "Please," he said. Grant glanced at the employees. "No special treatment." No one spoke. A man Elijah had helped during a winter blackout stepped behind someone else. The printer fed blank pages with a dry hiss. Thomas moved closer. "Grant, let him get the photograph." "Stay out of this." "He warned you." "He embarrassed this company." Elijah looked at Thomas. "Don't." The single word stopped him. Grant extended his hand. "Keys." Elijah reached into his pocket. Steel clicked as he lifted the ring. He removed the laundry room, service, and loading dock keys, placing each on the counter. Melissa counted under her breath. Then the old brass key appeared. Thomas's face changed. Grant pointed. "That one too." "No?" Marcus shifted. "Eli." "It was not issued by this company." "All access devices used here belong to management," Melissa said. Elijah closed his fingers around the brass. "Not this one." Grant turned to Marcus. "Escort him out." Marcus stepped forward, but his hand stopped before touching Elijah. "You know me," Elijah said. Marcus looked at the floor. "I know." "And you're still doing this?" "I have orders." "So did everyone who watched." The raised phone lowered. Elijah took the cart handle, then released it. He straightened the cloth and turned the spray bottle label outward for the next shift. Lena covered her mouth. Marcus touched his elbow. They crossed the lobby. Elijah's shoes made soft sounds against the marble he had polished before dawn. A drop of rain slid from his coat and landed between his scuffed toe and Grant's black shoe. At the doors, Thomas called. "Mr. Ward!" Grant snapped. He doesn't work here anymore. Elijah did not turn. Behind him, one elevator bell chimed. The doors remained closed again. Then every indicator above the lobby went dark. The glass doors closed behind Elijah at 4:55 p.m. Rain struck his face sideways. He pulled his coat shut, but his fingers could not find the second button. Across the street, the bus shelter glowed under a weak blue panel. Marcus remained inside. Their eyes met through the glass. Marcus lifted a hand, then let it fall. Elijah crossed the wet pavement and sat beneath the shelter. Water ran from his sleeve onto the brass key in his palm. One drop slid along its worn teeth and darkened the knee of his gray uniform. Inside the tower, Lena stood beside the abandoned cart. "You all watched him walk out." No one answered. Grant turned toward the elevators. "Resume normal operations." "The indicators are dead," Thomas said. "Then reset them." Melissa handed the dismissal folder to an assistant. "Call systems." Daniel Kim remained near a column, his phone angled toward the floor. Grant noticed. "Put that away." Daniel locked the screen. "I was checking the time. You were filming an internal personnel matter. I saw an old man ask for a photograph." Melissa stepped between them. "Delete anything you recorded." Daniel glanced toward the rain-streaked doors. "I'll check." That wasn't a request. Lena slipped into the janitorial closet and shut the door. The room smelled of bleach and damp cotton. She opened the photograph of Elijah's warning report, sent it to her private email, then forwarded it to Daniel with one line. "They knew before they fired him." A knock sounded. "Lena?" Thomas called. She opened the door a few inches. "They're searching staff phones," he whispered. "Send everything outside." "Already did." His shoulders lowered. "The pressure is still climbing." Across the lobby, Melissa spoke into her headset. "Remove the paper report from the operations file." Thomas stared at her. "She means destroy it," Lena said. 10 minutes later, Melissa entered the basement archive. Fluorescent light flickered above rows of binders. She found Elijah's report beneath a maintenance log and fed it into the shredder. The machine jammed halfway. "Come on!" She pulled at the page. The red line tore, but Elijah's signature remained caught between the blades. Behind her, a camera indicator blinked green. At the bus shelter, Elijah watched the tower's upper floors dim in sections. 38, 36. Then the conference level. A bus approached, brakes hissing over wet asphalt. The driver opened the door. "You getting on?" Elijah looked at the dark windows. "Not yet." The bus pulled away. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. "Mr. Ward?" Daniel's voice was low. "You don't know me. I was in the lobby." "I remember." "I have the video." Elijah closed his fingers around the key. "Keep the original." "There's more. Lena sent me the report. It was signed before the meeting." "Send both somewhere safe." "Where?" "Outside the company." Daniel inhaled. "Who are you?" Before Elijah could answer, red alarm lights began flashing behind the lobby glass. Then Thomas called from another line. "Eli, the elevators have locked. The control screen is asking for founder authorization." Elijah stood. Across the street, every door in the tower sealed at once. At 5:07 p.m., the lobby speakers repeated the same calm sentence. "Please remain where you are." No one did. Employees crowded the elevator bank. Investors pressed the call buttons until the plastic warmed beneath their fingers. Behind the security desk, Marcus watched 4 red numbers hang above sealed doors. 12, 19, 31, 38. "Those cars are occupied," he said. Grant moved beside him. "Open them." "I can't." You have override access. Not in this mode. Thomas pushed through the crowd and reached the control terminal. Amber light washed his face. The display read, "Protective lock. Manual release disabled." Melissa folded her arms. This is the disruption he threatened. Thomas turned. He described a sequence. You ignored it. A sharp knock came from elevator 12. Can they breathe? Daniel asked. The ventilation is independent, Thomas said. They're safe for now. For now? Grant repeated. Thomas lifted the emergency phone. Car 12, this is building control. Stay calm. We're working on release. A woman answered through static. We have 6 people in here. One has a heart condition. Grant reached for the handset. Thomas held it away. Don't promise a time you can't give. On the 38th floor, emergency doors sealed the investor suite. Evelyn Brooks, 62, chair of the investment committee, stood among the trapped guests with one hand on a silver cane. What triggered this? She asked through the intercom. Thomas looked at Melissa. A pressure imbalance and disabled sensors. Melissa said, That has not been established. Lena stepped from the crowd. It was written down at 9:17. Every face turned. Grant's voice dropped. Be careful. So should people who shred safety reports. Melissa went still. Daniel raised his phone. I have the photograph. Grant stared at him. You're finished here. Maybe, Daniel said, but the file isn't. A low pulse traveled through the floor. Fire doors locked with a heavy mechanical thud. Several employees flinched. Across the street, Elijah stood in the rain with Thomas on speaker. Read me the exact message, Elijah said. Thomas bent toward the screen. Protective lock active. Manual release denied. Authorized founder access required. Below that. Thomas scrolled. His breathing changed. What? Grant demanded. Thomas read aloud. Master authorization. Elijah Ward. The lobby quieted except for rain tapping the glass. Melissa stepped closer. That's a legacy entry. Delete it. I can't delete ownership-level access. Grant snatched the phone. Ward, return immediately and fix this. Elijah's voice came small through the speaker. Are the cars ventilated? Yes. Any medical distress? Possible cardiac issue in 12. Call emergency services to stand by. Do not force the doors. Grant tightened his grip. You'll come back now. A pause. Evelyn's voice entered from the intercom. Mr. Holloway, who is Elijah Ward? Grant looked toward the sealed glass doors. Thomas answered first. The system identifies him as founder. Outside, Elijah stepped off the curb. Thomas, he said, open the service entrance when I reach it. Then the screen changed again. Founder identity verification pending. At 5:12 p.m., Priya Shah locked the archive room behind her. Emergency lights painted the shelves red. Below, an elevator alarm sounded every 20 seconds. Find Ward, Evelyn Brooks had ordered through the intercom. Not the employee record, the name. Priya opened the lease database. Melissa stood over her shoulder. This is not the time for archaeology, Melissa said. It became the time when the building rejected your override. Grant paced. We need a legal answer. Priya typed Elijah Ward. 3 files appeared, a custodial subcontract, an old engineering license, and a restricted record marked Trust Governance, Owner Access Only. She entered her council credentials. Access denied. Call Nolan. Grant frowned. Why? Finance has the owner records. Nolan Pierce arrived. His tie loosened. Open the ownership file, Priya said. That requires dual authorization. You have mine, Grant said. No, Priya replied. You have corporate authority, not trust authority. Grant struck the cabinet with his palm. People are trapped. And someone designed this system to stop us from bypassing it. Nolan inserted his card. Priya added hers. The file opened. Ward Meridian Trust. A scanned deed listed 2 founders, Ruth Ann Ward and Elijah Samuel Ward. Priya scrolled. 72% controlling interest, she read. Surviving trustee, Elijah Ward. Melissa shook her head. That cannot be the janitor. Nolan leaned closer. The birth date matches. Grant's face tightened. Why would the owner clean floors? Priya opened a faded blueprint. Elijah's signature sat beside the foundation approval. She touched the screen. He did not only own the building, she said. He helped design it. Daniel and Lena entered, damp from the service corridor. You're not authorized to be here, Melissa snapped. Daniel raised his phone. Neither was destroying evidence. He played the security clip. Melissa feeding Elijah's report into the shredder, then pulling at the jammed page. Nolan removed his glasses. Lena placed her phone on the table. This is the report before she destroyed it. Priya compared it with the deed. The same angular signature appeared on both. Grant turned to Melissa. You called it a minor fluctuation. You agreed the meeting could not be delayed. Based on your assessment. You wanted the floors open. Their voices rose until Evelyn's voice came through Priya's speaker. Counsel, have you identified Mr. Ward? Priya pressed the intercom key. Yes. In what capacity? She looked at Grant, then at the blueprint. Controlling owner of the building and surviving trustee of Ward Meridian Trust. No one moved. Daniel's phone vibrated. His video had uploaded externally. Lena whispered, They fired the landlord. No, Priya said. They removed the person who can release the building. Thomas called from the lobby. Service entrance opening now. Grant moved toward the door. Priya blocked him. Where are you going? To meet Ward. For the building? Grant said nothing. For yourself? The elevator alarm sounded again. Then the blueprint refreshed, exposing a handwritten line beneath Elijah's signature. Founder control may not be overridden by tenant management. At 5:16 p.m., the service entrance clicked open. Elijah stepped inside carrying Rain on his shoulders. The corridor smelled of wet concrete and hot circuitry. Thomas waited beside the freight elevator. Cars 12 and 19 are stable, Thomas said. 31 has a frightened child. 38 has the investors. Medical team? Outside. Elijah folded his coat over a chair. Keep them there until the cars are level. Grant appeared with the others behind him. Mr. Ward, Grant said. The title landed awkwardly. Elijah looked at Thomas. Founder control? Still sealed. Grant stepped closer. We know who you are. No. You know what the deed says. We need you to release the elevators. And the pressure loop? Thomas answered. Still high. Then elevators come second. Melissa's heels stopped. There are people trapped. There are people protected, Elijah replied. If we force the system, they may not stay that way. Grant lowered his voice. What do you want? Elijah took the brass key from his pocket. The building safe. They entered the freight elevator. No one spoke as it descended below the basement. The car smelled of oil and cold metal. Grant watched the old key in Elijah's hand. You worked here 20 years, he said. Longer. As a janitor. As needed. The doors opened onto a narrow passage. Dust lay thick except for footprints. At the far end stood a green steel door with no electronic panel. Melissa stared. This room isn't on the plans. It was removed, Thomas said. Elijah inserted the key. Before turning it, He touched the groove where Ruth's red thread had once been. Then he opened the door. Founder control was smaller than Grant expected. 2 analog consoles, a wall of labeled switches, and a framed photograph of Ruth in a yellow hard hat. Beneath it, her handwriting read, "Keep the doors open for the people no one sees." Elijah straightened the tilted frame. Thomas checked the pressure map. Loop B is isolated. Elijah opened a lower panel. The valve can be released manually, but someone sealed the access line. Melissa looked away. "Can you bypass it?" Grant asked. "I can undo it." He pulled a steel lever halfway. A vibration rolled through the room. Green lights appeared one by one. Thomas read the monitor. "Pressure falling. Hold it at 60. Grant reached toward the elevator control. Elijah blocked him with one hand. "Not yet." A wall phone rang. Evelyn's voice came through. "Mr. Ward?" "Yes. We owe you an apology." "Later. Is anyone in distress?" "The child is crying. Otherwise stable." Elijah picked up the intercom. "This is Elijah Ward. The cars will move shortly. Stay away from the doors." His voice traveled through the tower. Thomas nodded. "Pressure steady." Elijah turned the brass key in the second lock. A soft chime passed through the building. Elevator 12 changed from red to green, then 19, 31, 38. Above them, machinery woke with a low hum. Grant exhaled. "Thank you." Elijah watched the numbers descend. "Do not thank me yet." The first car reached the lobby. Applause rose through the intercom. Elijah removed the key. "Now," he said, "we open every record you tried to close." At 5:34 p.m., folding chairs scraped across the concrete floor of the mechanical level. Evelyn Brooks refused the executive conference room. "We meet where the warnings were ignored." The executives, workers, and 3 trustees sat beneath exposed pipes on identical gray chairs. A heater clicked near the wall, pushing air that smelled of oil. Elijah stood beside Ruth's photograph. Helen Ford entered carrying 2 black cases. Silver-haired, she wore red reading glasses on a chain. "I'm the independent auditor for Ward Meridian Trust," she said. "No officer may alter or remove a record." Melissa crossed one leg. "This is an emergency, not a tribunal. Emergencies are when records become honest." Priya connected Daniel's phone. The lobby video showed Grant's hand, Elijah's badge, employees looking away. Grant moved. "That clip lacks context." "Then provide it," Evelyn said. Mr. Ward exceeded his duties. Elijah asked, "Which duty endangered the building?" Grant did not answer. Helen placed Lena's photograph beside the shredded report. The red line and 9:17 a.m. timestamp matched. "Ms. Crane, why was this removed?" "It was preliminary." "Why was it shredded?" Melissa's heel stopped. "I was clearing duplicates." Daniel tapped the screen. Footage showed her pulling the jammed page from the machine. "No duplicate is visible," Helen said. The heater clicked off. Water moved through the pipes overhead. Thomas held his cracked cap. "She told me to withdraw the shutdown request." Melissa turned. "Be precise." "You showed me a termination draft. You mentioned my pension." "That was a staffing discussion." "You told me to choose which paper left the room." His fingers tightened. The visor gave another tiny crack. Helen asked, "Did anyone else receive instructions concerning Mr. Ward?" Marcus stared at the floor. "Chief Bell?" Evelyn prompted. He unfastened his badge. The pin caught, and his thumb slipped twice. "Grant told me to remove Eli after the presentation," Marcus said. "No verification. No review." Grant leaned forward. "You were enforcing policy." Marcus placed the badge on the table as carefully as if it might break. "He asked for his wife's photograph," Marcus said. I still walked him outside. No one interrupted. Marcus's hand rested on Elijah's elbow on screen. Priya opened the trust lease. Section 14 requires management to preserve founder controls, certified access, and protected reporting channels. Nolan rubbed his glasses with his tie. Operations cut all three. Finance approved the savings, Helen said. I saw the category, not the risk. You approved a number without asking what it erased. He stopped polishing. Evelyn faced Elijah. What action do you want tonight? Grant stiffened. Elijah walked to the table and turned Marcus's badge face up. No verdict tonight, he said. Secure the records. Protect the workers who spoke. Bring every order, email, and access log to an independent review. Melissa exhaled. And us? You will have the process you denied others. Helen opened the second case. Inside were emails from the executive floor, including one sent at 8:03 that morning. Its subject line read, Remove founder references before investor arrival. At 8:10 the next morning, Helen Ford projected the first email onto the mechanical room wall. Remove founder references before investor arrival. Below it sat Melissa's reply. Approved. Seal the access room. Grant folded his arms. That referred to outdated signage. Priya opened the attachment. It listed founder control, the pressure map, and Elijah Ward's authorization record. No signage, she said. Helen opened the access log. At 8:26, operations disabled 2 pressure sensors. At 9:17, Mr. Ward filed a warning. At 9:31, Ms. Crane removed it. Melissa's left thumb rubbed the edge of her watch band. The sensors were producing false alarms. Thomas slid a maintenance report across the table. They were accurate. Grant looked at Nolan. You approved the cuts. I approved a budget line. You signed the order. You called it software cleanup. Helen raised one hand. Blame will not replace chronology. She played an audio file recovered from Grant's office. His voice filled the room. If the janitor keeps pushing this, remove him before the investors see a problem. Grant's chair creaked. That was frustration, he said. Elijah rested his hands on his black notebook. Did you know my warning concerned life safety systems? He asked. Melissa said it was minor. And when Thomas disagreed? Grant looked toward the window. Helen placed 2 documents before him, the shutdown denial and the dismissal order. Both carried his electronic signature. Evelyn Brooks said, You had authority. You used it without checking. Grant picked up the suspension form. His pen hovered above the line. In the glass partition behind him, a janitor's cart stood in the corridor, a yellow cloth folded over its handle. Then he signed. I will not accept sole responsibility for decisions he demanded, Melissa said. Priya turned a page. You destroyed a protected report. I was preventing panic. You were preventing a record. Melissa's mouth opened, but no answer came. Helen read the interim findings. Grant and Melissa were suspended pending full review. Their access was revoked. All contractor terminations issued that week were frozen. Nolan would remain under supervision and face a separate financial inquiry. Lena sat near the back. When Helen announced whistleblower protection, she removed her phone from her pocket and placed it on the table instead of hiding it. Grant pushed back his chair. You could have ended my career last night, he told Elijah. Elijah closed the notebook. This is not mine to end. You own the building. I own responsibility for what happens in it. Marcus lowered his eyes. Elijah continued. Publish the findings to every worker. Not a summary. The full record. Evelyn nodded. Agreed. Melissa gathered her bag. At the door, she paused beside Thomas. "I was protecting the company," she said. Thomas touched the crack in his cap. "You kept protecting it from the truth." She left without replying. By noon, the suspension notice appeared on every floor. Employees stopped beside the screens, reading names they had once been afraid to say aloud. Elijah watched from the service corridor. Then he turned to Helen. "Now we write rules that don't depend on who owns the key." At 7:30 a.m. on Monday, Elijah erased interim response from the whiteboard and wrote permanent rules. Tables formed a square, so no chair stood at the head. Lena sat beside Marcus. Thomas placed his cracked cap on the floor. Helen Ford opened a binder. "The trust can approve policy today." "Not policy for us," Elijah said. "Policy with us." He slid blank name cards toward the cleaning, security, and maintenance crews. A supervisor frowned. "Contractors on the safety committee. I want the people who hear the pipes and elevators before executives do." Nolan adjusted his glasses. "That creates complications." So did ignoring them. Priya read the first proposal. Every safety complaint would receive an external tracking number visible to the worker who filed it. Management could not delete or close it without independent review. Lena touched her phone. What if the complaint is about the person assigning shifts? Then it bypasses that person, Helen said. And if they cut our hours? Retaliation triggers an audit. Marcus leaned forward. Written rule or promise? Written, Elijah said. Promises disappear when offices change. The radiator knocked twice. Thomas looked toward it by habit. A trainee checked the valve without being asked. The second proposal required a hearing before any contractor could be removed. The worker would receive the complaint, evidence, and a representative. Marcus rubbed the place where his badge had rested. Security, too. Everyone. You're giving me the process I didn't give you. I'm giving the next person what neither of us had that day. At 9:05, Priya uncovered a new committee board. 6 brass slots waited beneath Employee Safety Council. Volunteers? Lena stood first. She wrote Lena Ortiz on a card and pinned it into the cleaning slot. The tack resisted. She pressed until it clicked into the cork. I'm not an engineer, she said. Elijah looked at her card. Neither was the report you saved. Thomas added his name beneath maintenance. Marcus nominated a night guard who had worked weekends for 11 years and had never been invited above the lobby. By noon, Elijah presented the last measure. Ruth Ward's scholarship for hourly workers' families appeared on the screen. Lena read it twice. For children? For children, spouses, or workers returning to school. Thomas glanced at Ruth's photograph. She would have made the application 1 page. It is 1 page. The room laughed for the first time that morning. Nolan asked, How is it funded? Elijah placed a document before him. From the Executive Renovation Reserve. The private dining room? Will remain a room with a table. By late afternoon, the board had 6 names. The hotline had an outside number, and every dismissal form carried a mandatory hearing date. Lena stayed behind. You could have fired everyone who failed you. Elijah turned Ruth's photograph toward the light. Then the building would still depend on one person choosing mercy. Outside, a drill began. Removing the plaque marked executive access only. Elijah listened until the screws released. Open that corridor, he told Thomas. Tomorrow, we start with the scholarship applications. 6 months later, at 4:30 a.m., Elijah Ward entered the tower through the service door. The new scanner flashed green beneath his name. Owner access. No priority over safety procedures. He smiled. A cleaning cart waited beside the wall. Elijah placed a fresh cloth on its handle and began his Friday walk. The lobby smelled of wax and rain, as it had the morning Grant Holloway fired him, but the executive-only plaque was gone. A glass board now listed Safety Council members from every shift. Lena Ortiz's card occupied the first slot. At 7, she found Elijah on the 23rd floor, listening to the repaired elevator motor. "You're checking our work," she said. "I'm listening to the building." She handed him an envelope. Lena had been accepted into a 2-year building systems program, with tuition covered by the Ruth Ward Fund. "You applied for yourself," he said. "My mother told me I was allowed to be somebody's family, too." Elijah returned the letter to her. Ruth would have liked that answer. Downstairs, Thomas Reed led a training session for new managers. His cracked cap hung beside the whiteboard. "Every report gets a number," he told them. "Every worker gets an answer. No exceptions because a meeting is important." Marcus Bell stood at the back in a plain security jacket. After a 3-month suspension and retraining, he had returned under probation without supervisory rank. When the room emptied, he approached Elijah. "I still see that door closing," Marcus said. "So do I." "I thought following the order kept my job." "It nearly cost you more than that." Marcus nodded. He did not ask for forgiveness again. Instead, he opened the service door for a driver whose hands were full. At noon, the Trust published its first public safety report. It listed every ignored warning, corrective action, and executive decision without softened language. Nolan Pierce remained in a reduced financial role under independent oversight. Melissa Crane had been dismissed for destroying a protected report. Grant Holloway's contract had been terminated for repeated abuse of authority and failure to verify safety risks. Neither was publicly mocked. Their names appeared in the same typeface as everyone else's. That afternoon, Elijah rode to the roof with Thomas and Lena. November had become May. Warm wind crossed the concrete, carrying the smell of river water and new leaves. Beside the rooftop door stood a bronze plaque. "This building is kept standing by everyone who cares for it." Elijah set Ruth's photograph beneath it. In the picture, she wore her yellow hard hat and held the brass key that had once darkened his knee in the rain. Lena touched her scholarship letter. "Are you going to stop cleaning now?" "Not entirely." "Why not?" He looked through the glass at the floors below, where office workers, guards, engineers, and cleaners crossed the same open corridor. "Some things are easier to notice from the ground." Thomas handed him the old key. Founder control had been upgraded. No single person could activate it alone. 3 elected representatives now had to agree. Elijah turned the key once, then placed it in a shadow box beside Ruth's photograph. The wind lifted the picture's corner. He held it down with one finger until it settled. Below them, an elevator bell rang. This time, every door opened. Have you ever seen someone dismissed, ignored, or judged because of their job title, clothes, age, or quiet manner? Share what happened in the comments and tell us whether anyone chose to speak up before it was too late. Send this story to someone who believes dignity should not depend on rank and that justice means changing the system, not simply punishing one person. Subscribe for more stories about fairness, quiet resilience, accountability, and the people whose courage is often noticed only after everyone else has failed. And when you see someone doing the work others overlook, remember their name. Sometimes the person holding the mop, opening the door, or fixing the rail understands the whole building better than those occupying the highest floor.